Today is a tough topic, the subject of abuse. Abuse is a repeated pattern of disenfranchisement designed to elicit a pattern of victimization from another person. Uh, so, this, for example, is not necessarily abuse. I mean, it's definitely assault. That dude's going to jail, at least for the night. But other types of abuse. What about not allowing a partner to utilize their own money or limiting time with people that they don't approve of? Calling somebody names, putting them down, mocking beliefs, diminishment. Interestingly, sex abuse is often considered separate from physical. I tend to put them together because I have never seen sex abuse occurring without at least one or two of the other forms of abuse. Um, I think it's usually separated because we as a culture tend to want to keep sex apart from everything else. But it does honestly have different reactions that are elicited from the victims who are suffering from it. And bear in mind that sex abuse isn't necessarily limited to just rape either. Now, one of the important things to note here is also that the rapist, because regardless of whether or not there's penetration involved, that's what's happening, is engaging in the use of a person without their consent, without the victim's consent, for their own gratification. They may do this through persuasion or threat or just straight physicality. But what every form of all of those abuses have is that it's establishing control over another person. Why the abuser feels the need to have this kind of control is debatable. There's tons of specific reasons, as many as there are individual people. However, my anecdotal experience is that they suffer either from chronic anxiety or an egregious ego. Now, the egotistical person they just can't stand the idea that things can work without them. They are constantly pushing for engagement. They want to know what you're doing, how they're doing, why you're going to do it that way. And they may constantly have minute corrections for you or large corrections for you. I had a boss like that not long ago, actually. She absolutely couldn't stand anything that treaded outside of a line that only she set, and it was set every new day that she came into work. The reason why I could tell it was abusive is because I saw people's reactions to her. I had my own reaction to her. And it was always hilarious to watch when she had to be gone for a week, how everything suddenly worked better without her involvement. We got more work done even with the socializing that took place. Now, the anxiety variety of abuser is the one that I've had more actual experience with in terms of working with them in groups. They are afraid of losing their perceived control over something, be it a situation or a person. And so they wind up gripping it ever more tightly until they explode. Unfortunately, you know what happens when you hang on to something too tightly. Yeah, they try to escape. Now, it's unlikely that I'm going to get somebody in my tens of viewers who is an abuser and comes to suddenly an epiphany about how they're acting and changes their ways. So let's instead talk about the victim. Because abuse can be hard to see when you're being subjected to it, there's a few things to look for that are fairly basic but common. An abuser will have a pattern of limiting their victim's options for problem solving. It'll always be the victim's fault. And there will be, for the victim, a pervasive, long-term feeling of walking on eggshells, just waiting for something to break out from underneath them, never knowing the next thing that could go wrong. And as the victim, you're expected to fix the problem, but you never get the power to do so. If you feel like this is happening to you, you have a few tests you could do. One is look for that pattern. These things are going to be happening consistently in an even predictable kind of way. If you have any friends still, because one of the things that happens is an abuser culls those away often, look for them rolling your eyes, saying this again, or trying to say just leave. These are all clues. 2, what do your friends actually think? Ask. Do you have any? Which is another big problem. Look for opinions you can trust. Maybe you have to look back a long ways, even before the relationship started. Of course, you could always call a counselor. But remember, like any good horror movie, you're never as alone as you think you are. Though in this case, that's probably a good thing.